Don't look. Oh my gosh. I feel like it's been a while since I've actually busted the camera out and actually recorded some of my thoughts. So, got plenty of updates for you guys. But for those that do not know me, which again is majority of you guys, my name is William Alderman, and I am simply an archer that is pursuing being better in multiple aspects of my life, whether that be actually archery or as a husband, as a dad, as a follower of Christ. I'm just here trying to figure it all out. And so today I get to give some updates in regards to my bow life and things that are progressing. Getting really excited, and as you see, I am in my house once again. It's my lunch break, but this weekend I get to do something fun, and so I thought it was worthwhile to bust it out because I usually shoot during my lunch, but might as well talk a little bit too. But in the meantime, stay tuned. If any of that sounds interesting to you, 22:35. All right. Well. What happens when you're shooting different arrows out of your bow is when you take your first shot and you forget to move your sight, you hit way too high. So let's give that again. Give that a good old go again, try thingy. I'm still shooting really high. When I'm practicing in regards to my indoor stuff, I use indoor, obviously, like I've posted videos about, but I only have about 17 yards from the corner of my house to corner when I'm shooting through the garage. I have a short about that if you want to check it out, but I do have a way that when I open up my garage, I can shoot a little bit further, but I've noticed when I'm practicing, I can't use my actual pin fiber, which shout out to this commenter right here. Super, super clutch. So a long time ago, I made a video about a guy, or this guy, trying to shoot with a really bright target. And this guy was a Western hunter and talked about shooting out in the sun. And he said, man, take some tape and cover up your pin. I didn't want to do all that. But what I did do is change my fiber to clear. So now I just have a black post when there's no light on. And with the E-Bros, I have it to blue for anybody that's curious about that. I really like the pin color. But I thought turning up the blue would do enough and it helped me see my pin. It does not. When the target is well lit, which leads me to my point. When I move it outside, it's literally right in the sun, and I can't see anything, like at all, on the target when I have my fiber bright. But again, shout out to that commenter, and it allows me to shoot at 20 yards outside, super bright because it's always lunchtime, so the sun is at its peak, and it allows me to actually get really quality practice in. So with all that being said, dude, thank you so much for that comment. Helped me out tremendously. Now, when I'm shooting down at the range, I can also see my fiber even. Well, more importantly, when I'm shooting this, I think when I have the colored fiber, you're right, I probably will have to cover it up to get no color there at all. But at least when I'm shooting my title, I know a fix for when I'm out in the actual range and trying to shoot ASAs with all of the different lightings. Just turning off my light might be the fix for me, especially since I'm running my clear fiber and I can control the color through my actual E-Bros light. So shout out to you, appreciate it. You're thebomb.com, because I would have never thought turn off the light and that being the fix. So all things being said, appreciate it. But in regards to updates. I've changed a lot in regards to my shot process. Not a lot, I've changed a few things in regards to how quickly I get onto my trigger. I know in my first video when I talked about my shot process, I liked to wait just because it allowed me to keep everything in a step-by-step process. But now I speed up that process. I actually get my arm super long, and I think elbow, or I think long arm and elbow, and then I have this scripted conversation, and when I do it, and I ease onto the trigger, it helps me out. And so what that conversation sounds like, food for thought just for you guys, it is elbow, good, long, pull through the shot, good, settle in on the trigger, do not start the process. And then I ask myself, where do I wanna hit? And the reason why I ask myself, where do I wanna hit, is because it's easy to think middle, and just start aiming. But it's also easy for me to get lost in, okay, well, what am I feeling in my back? Am I getting my elbow super long? But when I get my focus on those things early and I get them set, and then I get my mind back to the thing that I actually want to accomplish, which is hitting the middle, it allows me personally to now get ready to squeeze off my trigger, because I do like to ease, and then like activate it, if you want to call it punch or whatever. I don't know, because I can feel the tension building, and then I kind of send it when I feel good about where it's at, and I try to just sustain a constant pressure, if that makes sense, throughout that shot. So this is what it now looks like in my shot process, and that's dead on, right in the middle. The other thing that I like to do when I'm shooting, I used to talk about rotating my finger and allowing that to be part of my like second stage click, going with the Joel Turner stuff. That was too much movement. The one time that I shot outdoors and I did like a ready to go hunt outdoor tournament, I got second. I made a video about that as well. Really excited when I actually got to compete in that. And I was using my V3X for that competition, but I found like all the rotating and all of that was just extra thoughts that I didn't want to have in my head while I was actually competing. So now I have my thumb peg bent all the way back. That way I can keep my fingers as natural as possible, rather than having to torque my hand all the way over to actually get the thing where I can wrap my thumb and get my thumb all the way around it. So food for thought, something that's really, really been beneficial for me as well in regards to my shot process. That's low. Now, other thing that's been really, really cool is I got some new arrows. I try not to shoot these a lot because they almost feel like a cheat code. Like on bad shots, you still most of the time will clip a 10 at the least. Unless you just haven't moved your sight correctly, which was my first two arrows. But since I'm gonna be shooting competition this weekend, I found it time to bust these out just to make sure I know at least roughly where my 20 is going to be. Then I can make adjustments in my 2 warm-up rounds. So that's what I'm gonna be doing when I show up there. But I like to practice with my Easton Axis, my old hunting arrows from about 3 years ago when I first got my V3X, when that all dropped. And I do that because it keeps me a little bit more honest. I don't have nearly the amount of forgiveness with a 5 mil versus a 27 diameter arrow. And so obviously when you're getting in competition, you want as much forgiveness as possible. But I think about it like resistance training. Like you don't always want to train in the optimal environment to create the best score that you can get in practice. And practice is about perfecting your craft to get the best that you can get. And so if I'm shooting 300s with the Easton Axis or a 299 with a 15X, who knows what that's gonna look like with the Fat Boys. And so trying to keep myself as honest as possible. I am shooting the Victory VTAC 27 diameters. I think I already said that, but just wanna make it clear in regards to the brand. I love their brand. I shoot their hunting arrows, the RIP TKOs. For my hunting setup, I do have the Elite in both, and I am shooting these full staffed with the tack vanes. I have the smaller ones, the 2.25, with all of the standard inserts with a 150 up front. I do have some extra weights if I ever wanted to add more weight to the front, but right now they're shooting straight, shooting pretty consistent every time I busted them out. So it really doesn't make sense for me in my head to make any interesting adjustments there or to add anything extra. But that's another food for thought. Good. That one felt good. All right, and then in regards to the hunting season updates, obviously I have not been posting videos, mostly because when I do have free time, I'm rushing home to shoot, or I am shooting at school, because I'm super beneficial to be able to teach archery at my school while also having all the targets there. So all I have to do is bring my stuff, I set it up, and I get to go shoot. The benefit of that is time efficiency. Obviously I get, even if it's a 30-minute break, I get to go shoot and practice. But when I do get home, I've been wanting to just focus on getting better and learning my craft rather than trying to talk to a camera, which I love actually building and creating really cool content because it helps me log my thoughts in a very organized way to make sure I actually know what it is that I believe, whether it be archery or what do I believe in leadership and how we need to be talking to each other or whatever those things are. I believe in trying to organize those thoughts before it actually becomes an issue. And so with that, I've been really just a hermit, but also the amount of time that I can get in the woods, I don't find it beneficial to be editing a video when I want to be with my family when I don't have that time. But again, with this weekend coming up, I was really excited, so I thought I would interrupt some of my practice to give you guys an update on where I'm at. Now, I have gotten 4 deer down. They've been all does. Had some opportunity at a few different buck, or one nice buck, and then seen some bucks off in the distance. And so at this point, it's really antler hunting. The reason why I get as many deers as we do is because that is our main source of protein. We do not buy a lot of meat from the grocery store. Whether you call it distrust or whatever, I just really like knowing what's in my food. And to the best of my ability, if I can control that and continue to provide for my family, then that's the way I'm going to do it. And so, yeah, praise God that I've gotten that many down. Now it's just kind of fun hunting from the rest of the season. I say fun hunting, it's still meat. I still want to make sure the freezer's full. I have some people that are wanting to get some meat from me, and so I want to help out in regards to my direct community as well. But I mean, who doesn't want a nice pair of antlers as well? I think there's a bit of pride in the toughness of tracking them down and figuring out where they're traveling. And there's just a little bit of extra pride there. So I'm not weary about saying that. I get excited about it, but always want to be careful in regards to how it's portrayed, because I think the idea of just hunting for the antlers and cutting off the head and leaving the deer is completely crazy and nonsense. It's like killing a shark just for its fin, and then throwing it back in and letting it drown because it can't swim anymore. To me, it's completely disrespectful to God's creation. And I mean, you can run the gamut of what all these talking points are, but I actually truly believe it. And so that's just where I'm at in the process, and praise God that right now, even if nothing else happened, I think we'd be pretty much okay on the year. But again, does are a little bit different than bucks, and usually it'd be 3 does and 1 buck. And so I feel like I have a little bit more room in the freezer that I need to make sure I feel before the actual season is over. That's high, right? So this is what the practice looks like. Those were my first 2, trying to get everything sighted in. And then I remember that I'm shooting indoors, not at 20, but at 17. This was my Easton setup. This was my 20 yards. And then this was me actually moving the pin to the right direction. And so obviously this was not the best shot. But I mean, I'm happy with how it's turning out. And so just got to keep it clean, and we'll tighten it up on the next one. And I'm back. As I was showing you guys, that's what the target kind of looks like. That's why I practice through I practice, is because clearly there was a few shots there that I'm not sure would have been anywhere near actually scoring, but the fact that they actually hit the 10 ring is nice. It's talk about forgiveness or whatever you want to talk about. It's really, really nice to know that every shot doesn't have to be exactly perfect. There is a calming effect there. But I also have to be very cautious in the way that I practice, because if I stayed in that type of mindset, I would probably be throwing a lot more careless shots in, just knowing my makeup. And so when I raise the stakes, when I'm shooting the little ones, little arrows, it kind of helps me stay a little bit more focused during my practice. So maybe it's something you start doing, maybe not, who knows, whatever, totally up to you guys. But I will say, on another note, the fact that I get to compete this weekend is really, really exciting. I feel like a kid in a candy store, just excited to get used to this whole new process of what it actually looks like to compete. I did one with a local guy that I know runs Evolution Archery, really cool guy. And he's actually sponsoring this first event, but it's a part of the bigger collective, and I will show the actual name of that collective up here. But I'm just super excited to actually be able to compete. Just as I've said before, to be in a group my whole life of always finding things to compete in, whether it be me and my brother racing down the stairs or racing to put on our seatbelt, whatever the thing is, I just get really, really excited knowing that I get to, one, put this beautiful thing to use, but also knowing the fact that I get to truly just be the best that I can be in something and get like immediate response, like, hey, did I win or not? I think in our day-to-day lives, to me personally, I like the idea of trying to come out victorious. And so this kind of gets to tickle that itch, or whatever you want to call it. I think I'm gonna change the angle. Not sure if I like the angle or not, but we're doing it anyways. Second shot. So that was not a very solid shot. I don't even know if I got my finger on the thumb peg, but yeah, it still looks like it's in the 10, which is mind-blowing. rounds, round 2. All right, so one thing that I just learned going into this tournament, so I was talking to my guy, trying to figure out exactly what the structure is because I like to know what the process is going to be before I get thrown into it. So what that process actually looks like in competition for anybody that has questions like I did. The process is very simple. You show up, you sign up, or you already do all your pre-registration, then you make sure you get everything in line. You make sure your name is correct, whatever you sign up. After that, when everything starts rolling, what occurs is you have 2 warm-up rounds, at least in the league that I'm competing in. With that warm-up round, you can take as many shots as you want. Now, you don't want to shoot yourself to death and shoot like 20 shots in your first round where everybody else is trying to go down. So I'm sure that there's some type of time restraint. But at the end of the day, you're going to have 2 rounds to shoot at your piece of paper to make sure that everything is sighted in, because you know with different lighting, it can change your impact point based on your peep and how you're aligning with your peep, but also just it might be a little bit different, especially if it's set up in a warehouse. It might be 21 yards when it's supposed to be 20 based on your rangefinder. At the end of the day, you get to make sure in those 2 rounds, you get to sight it in and get it correctly. Now, one of the things that I am going to do when I get there is I'm going to bring my own paper. That way I'm not ruining the paper because he asked me not to use too many because he had to buy the sheets of the target. But what I'm going to do with that is I am going to have the vertical targets because we're actually going to be shooting vertical targets, but I'm also going to put extra aiming dots on there. So I'm not just aiming at the same arrows because I don't want to knock and break my nocks. Or just ding up my arrows for no reason. But I'm gonna have my pin there, and once I pin it up, I'm going to put extra marks on there. So instead of having 3 points of reference, I'm going to make for myself at least 6 points of reference. That way I get 12 arrows in those first rounds, rather than just the 3 that everybody else is probably gonna take, or maybe they take more, but not having a true aiming point. Whether that helps me or not, I think it will, because the more I shoot, the more confidence I build. I'm not one of those guys that just want to like take a few and then feel good about it. I like actually feeling what my bow is doing. And if I can get at least 6 to 12 shots, because it doesn't look like they're going to have a warm-up range, at least at where I'm at, then it's going to be golden. And then what happens is after that, you start your ends. You're going to have 2 minutes. Yes, 2 minutes to actually get all of your shots in, which will be 3 shots per end, and there's going to be 10 ends. I think we're going to be using the Lancaster scoring. He wasn't sure at first when I first talked to him, which means the X ring will actually be scored as an 11. And then you have your 10, 9, 8, 7, and then so on outside. The benefit to that is obviously you run a higher score, but then you actually get a bonus immediately rather than just a tiebreaker for your X count. So it encourages a little bit truer shooting to the middle of the target rather than just clipping the X ring, or just clipping the 10 is really what I mean. So that's also the benefit of me shooting the little skinny boys rather than these fat boys that I got now in my quiver. So that's the general layout, what it looks like. Hopefully that's beneficial, because I had no idea. I've watched videos, but I didn't know what the actual process of the warm-up was. I've seen the Lancaster shootout where they were always talking about having a warm-up room and stuff like that, but I doubt local tournaments are gonna have that. So I would assume that probably a lot of local style tournaments will be that same, hey, you have 2 rounds or 2 ends to warm up, and after that is full go. So obviously you want to be as close to dialed for your 20, have your tick marks if you're using like actual adjustable moving sight. Know what your tick marks are roughly going to be before you get there. That way it doesn't throw you for a loop when you have to move your pin. And then the last little bit of advice that I've received, I don't know if it's true, but don't be afraid to make those micro adjustments. If you're hitting high consistently, then just bump your sight up a little bit. If you're hitting low, make the adjustment. So hopefully that's beneficial. It was extremely beneficial to me. So all I'm doing is relaying some messages that I've received. It is nothing new to a lot of you, but it was good food for thought for me. You know, the cool thing about recording yourself is the fact that if you post a video and actually are honest and true to what's happening, especially paper when it keeps track of where your impact points are. Talk about keeping you humble. Yeah, that'll do it. It'll make sure you're not lying. It's the benefit of paper to me. And so, unless you're hitting the same dot, if you keep on hitting the same dot, don't ever know how many shots you took. Because then you just expand that hole a little bit. I think we are 3 rounds in and shooting decently clean, but not getting a bunch of X's like I need to be, especially with these fat boy arrows at 17 yards. But at the end of the day, again, it keeps you honest shooting on camera. And so now I'm just gonna lock it in. So yeah, no, that was my 3rd round. I forgot my 2 practice ends to get my bow sighted back in. So we're gonna shoot 2 more on camera. Then I'm gonna have to hustle out of here so I can get back to work. I think that's a better round. So as I said, this is gonna be my last round, then I gotta get out of here. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't, I doubt you made it this far to even hear me say this. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have some more updated content and actually breaking some things down, especially like the shot sense. I do have that inside of this bow. Been really cool, beneficial tool. I think is way more than just a good old shot counter. But that's food for thought for another day. But anyways, be great. Remember to be better. Peace.